Hi, my name is Tyler Mowry, and welcome to the Writer's Mind Podcast, episode 12. All right, so in episode 11, I talked about this book over here, The Way of the Superior Man, and I just read a couple pieces of it, just kind of talking about what I felt like has been helpful to me so far as I've read through it, and this idea of the general philosophy that he is offering. And just as a side note, it's interesting to think about philosophies versus religions, right? Because if I look at the back, he is essentially kind of a spirituality teacher, and I think some of his work would probably be considered in the realm of more new age spirituality or focusing on energy, these sorts of things. And I definitely think there's a lot to learn with that kind of philosophy. But it's interesting, that being a more generalized, it's kind of a generalized religious viewpoint where he is not necessarily going off of, a particular book of spirituality. I'm sure that some of his stuff is influenced by other major religions, but the book itself is not, not specifying in a particular religion. And it'll be interesting to think maybe at some point if we begin to look at certain elements of religious philosophy in this, because I think that would be interesting. I think it's important to think about. I think one of the faults maybe of our current culture is this idea that there's the organized religions don't have anything of value to bring. I think there's many in sort of pop culture that kind of hold on to that idea, and I don't really believe that. And also it's important to realize how integrated into story major religions are, and how much of major religions are story-based. And it's important to think about how some of the core elements of what we as people believe and how we are viewing the world is organized through storytelling. But that's kind of a tangent. So what I wanted to talk about today is there's a chapter that I didn't talk about in the other podcast that I thought was really good, and I want to read a little bit from this and kind of talk about it. So chapter 14, he talks about don't get lost in tasks and duties. So he says, a man should never get lost in the details of his life and forget that ultimately and in truth, life amounts to nothing other than what is the deepest truth of his present moment. Tasks don't get a man anywhere more conscious or free than he is capable of being in this present moment. Okay, so that sounds pretty, energy or spirituality. What's he really saying there? I really think that what he's saying here is that we get lost heavily in day-to-day tasks, and we get lost in what has to be done today. And those tasks can be, and sometimes are, an element of our larger goal and our, what we're trying to achieve. But it's important to understand that that is not what makes us fulfilled, right? Completing tasks does not equal life fulfillment. One of the things he says in here is, he asks a question. He says, has your task addiction built blinders that limit the vastness of your vision even now? Tasks are important, but no amount of duties adds up to love, freedom, or full consciousness. I think this is really true. He ends this later on by saying, you are not a drone, you are the unbounded mystery of love, which is We'll talk about that in a second. Be so without forgetting your tasks. So what I liked about this is what he is trying to do again and again in this book is get you to analyze your life and get you to analyze your present moment, because what we do is we like to be doing things without ever analyzing what we're doing and how we're doing it. And it's necessary to go through stages of analyzing what you're doing if you're actually going to adjust and put yourself on the correct path or whatever path you're trying to be on. So it's kind of this loop, right? Where tasks are important, what we're doing is important, how we do it is important, but we also need to be continually aware of the fact that the tasks that we're doing need to be, a part of a larger whole, which is our living. And so what that means is it's important to live in an awareness of what you're doing and live in an awareness of whether or not what you're doing right now is important and whether or not you are fulfilled, content, and happy with what you're doing right now. And let me relate this to writing because, that's what we talk about here. I got the Starbucks today. In writing, right, and this is something that I have gotten sometimes lost in, which is that writing is filled with tasks and skill set building, right? I mean, the entire first few steps of writing usually is learning story theory. And then, if you are in my course or you kind of follow how I have looked at writing, it goes into the practical elements of writing, actually finishing a screenplay, actually getting over writer's block and procrastination, finishing that screenplay, and also how to rewrite. And so those are all learning skill sets and completing tasks and essentially checking boxes so that you're growing the skill set of being a writer. And a lot of that doesn't sound very creative or inspired or any of these things because we see it as what it is, which is a list of tasks that you must complete over time, right? If you have to write 4 drafts of a screenplay, you write a first draft and then you rewrite, you are completing tasks, right? But at the same time, you're also supposed to be standing outside of this and understanding, what the point of writing is, the value of the process you're in, and the value of the particular story you're trying to bring to other people. And so it is important to complete these tasks, and it is important to build skill set. What is the most important is consistently keeping a frame of mind that makes these tasks not all consuming in your life and makes you understand that there is a purpose to them, not only in the long term, but also in the day-to-day, right? Because I think there's the idea is that while in the long term, writing could be a career or can help you bring ideas to other people. And it can also, on the day-to-day, is developing your personal philosophy and developing your craft. And I think part of life, I wouldn't say it's the whole of life, but as I've been on my own kind of philosophical journey, I think one of the important things in life is consistently building a skill, consistently building and honing a particular craft, whatever that is. But I think there's a lot of value in finding a craft and then doing that craft to the best of your ability over time. And obviously that looks different for different people, but I think it is important to be on that journey. Because I do think there's something about, this book, a lot of the things that he says in this book over here is about present moment, right? He's trying to get you into a mindset of understanding that the world is not always the past and the future, but it is right now. And you need to be building your life in a way that you can find satisfaction, contentment, and joy in what you're doing right this second, as well as what you're going to be doing a year from now or 5 years from now or 10 years from now. At the same time, there is also, I think, deep fulfillment and value in building your life around certain things that are set out into the future, because there is a lot of life that is about that pursuit. So I think it's about having a noble, beneficial, fulfilling pursuit, but then also holding awareness in the day-to-day of that to say, okay, it's not about, while I am looking to complete this particular thing, my life doesn't become complete once I complete this particular task. My life is consistently changing and moving. My life is more of a process, not just getting to a particular point. And I think making that shift is extremely valuable. And I think the way that you make that shift is finding the satisfaction and the joy in what you're doing on the day-to-day, and trying to do your best to cut things out that you don't need, or to make alterations in your day-to-day that's going to make your day-to-day happier. Because I don't think you're going to have that fulfilling of a life if day to day to day to day to day, all you're doing is doing intense, horrible things that you despise. It'd actually be interesting to think about Elon Musk and what he's doing. I don't know what his day-to-day is right now, but the amount of things that he is putting on his plate is insanity. To have a company that is trying to put people on Mars, and at the same time create electric cars at scale, and at the same time create companies that are linking the human minds with computers, it's insanity. And I think that maybe now he has a better day-to-day, but I remember reading the Elon Musk biography by Ashley Vance, and Musk saying that the era around 2008 was horrible for him, and all he was doing was working and trying to keep Tesla afloat. And it's interesting to think about the long-term goals that he is trying to achieve. I think are very interesting, especially with SpaceX. And trying to put people on 2 planets is a wild task, and it will be fascinating to see if he can pull it off. And so I think he definitely feels some fulfillment in that, but at the same time, it's also probably not an easy day-to-day to be doing all of the things that he's doing. And it's also interesting because it's not necessarily about having an easy day-to-day as much as it is a fulfilling day-to-day. So I think there's some wiggle room finding what is your level of, what can you take as an individual on a day-to-day, and kind of staying in that zone. Because I also don't think, just like David Data is saying, don't get lost in tasks here. I don't believe that working constantly is the sign of a fulfilling life. I mean, I would venture to say most people work too much, and they should do beneficial, fulfilling, and like the ideal world, right? Obviously, we do not live in an ideal world. But if we lived in a utopia, everybody, in my opinion, would be doing intelligent, focused, beneficial, and fulfilling work for maybe a couple hours a day, and that's it. Because if you think about it, that's really what people are probably working less than that now, in that sense, right? Most people are not doing beneficial, fulfilling work ever, right? Most people are just working jobs they hate, doing things they hate, despising their situation. And people work 9 to 5s, and they might put in an hour of actual work, and that hour of actual work is not work that they want to do, right? And so they're not even getting lost in tasks. They're just getting lost in what they're trying to do in their life, right? And, it's fine if you are working a job that you don't like. What's not fine if you are not if you're not trying to formulate a better situation for yourself, if you're not trying to figure out what you want, what work would be fulfilling to you. You don't have to know that immediately, but it is definitely important to figure that out as soon as you can. and to at least be making progress in some directions to start feeling out what's working for you and what isn't. Because your life is not simply working. Life doesn't equal fulfilling work. I think fulfilling work is an element of life. And so you have to really get down to the question of what is life? What is a fulfilled life? What does a complete life look like? And I'm not here to answer that question. I don't know. But it's important to be thinking about that, because the clearer you have an understanding of kind of how your life should look like, it's easier to figure out what you need to be doing on the day-to-day. Because that is going to help you. And also, there's this relationship between thinking and doing that's really interesting, because it's important to occasionally analyze and think and say, okay, is my life in the way I have it set up right now? Is this fulfilling to me? What do I need to change? Because I think there's always growth and movement and change. And where would I like to be going, and what would I like that to look like on a day-to-day basis? But at the same time, there's also a ton of what's the word? There's a ton of legitimacy in just trying to do different things and not overthinking it, and then slowly using that to figure out what you should be doing and where you should be going, right? So some people overthink when they should just be doing something, right? People want to sit and they say, oh, I'm an overthinker. I need to really think about all these elements of my life. It's like, okay, well, you do that up to a certain point, but then after that, you really need to figure out what you actually need to be doing, right? Because I don't really think human beings are made to constantly think. We're really made to be doing things and then using our thought processes to help us do things. So for example, with me, I really didn't know what I was doing when I first started my YouTube channel. I started my YouTube channel at first to help me study filmmaking and writing. That was the purpose of my YouTube channel in the beginning. I was making bad video essays, and I was trying to study and do learning and just learn. And then actually, I don't know what I have privated or unlisted or whatever on my main channel, but there's a lot of videos in there where you can really watch me try to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing here. And I don't know, there's points where I don't know what I'm trying to do with my channel. There's points where I took long breaks. I think there's a couple points over the 5 years or almost 6 years that I have made YouTube videos where I took, a few months off or a summer off or these sorts of things, and just trying to figure things out. And I think it was important to go through that process, because even though I didn't know what I was doing something, and doing something really helped me continue to have it in my mind on where I wanted to be going, right? So it really was a positive feedback loop in that way. And then when I shifted my channel and really started in a strong direction, and I realized kind of what I wanted to do, and I wanted to help people with writing, and at that point, I had already built an audience of 20,000 subscribers. And so when I finally aligned and figured out what I was trying to do, me doing things for a while and shooting in the dark gave me a head start to jumpstart where I wanted to go and what I really wanted to do. And so it really, it gave me so much fuel to start moving once I figured out the real direction. And I think that that's probably true for a lot of people. I think it's important to just start and then figure out what you want to do, and then adjust and adjust and adjust. Because you can even take it further back than there, back when I was a kid and I was just reading novels like crazy. That then built upon my struggle to figure out what I wanted to do with my YouTube channel and figure out where I wanted to go with my life. And then that hopped into the YouTube channel and what it became today and what I'm doing now. And, also looking forward to what I want to do next and where I want to go when I'm 30 or when I'm 40. So I think it's important to not get lost in tasks like he says in this book, but it is important to be doing tasks. I think tasks and projects and these sorts of things are of huge importance. And, like I just showed you with kind of where things went with me so far, I really think you need to let things evolve, right? You might not be doing the same things a year from now, and that's fine, and that actually might be better because you are evolving as a person and you're getting a better understanding of what you should be doing. And so the value of, you really need to get a better understanding or just gain an awareness of what is the value of the tasks you're doing now, right? Because many people will say, okay, well, in my job, the value of that is money. Okay, great. We need money. Our society is built in a way where you need money to live. So that makes sense. Now, is that where you want to be? Is there something else you could do? Right? Even in that, and then, you may go home and then you write at night or you write in the morning and you have this idea of, okay, well, I'm a writer, I'm a storyteller, I want to evolve in that direction. Okay, great. And then you can start to think about, okay, well, how do I mesh these two worlds together, right? I have this career world where I'm making money, and I have this writing world where I am communicating my ideas and building a skill set as a writer. Is there a way where I can slowly mesh those? And, maybe there is. And maybe you go through stages of, career writing jobs that aren't exactly a perfect fit, but you're looking for what you really want to do over time. And this is just the process of life, but it really helps to start that direction. Direction is so important, and action is so important. That's why you don't want to get lost in tasks, but you need to be taking action and going from that point to then figuring out what you're trying to do and how you want your life to look. Because if all you're doing is thinking about writing, all you're doing is thinking about what your life should look like, all you're doing is thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking, the answers are never going to come to you because you don't have any outside input. You're only working with your own mind. You only have your own experiences. You have to broaden your own experience through action to then help yourself think and figure out what you're actually trying to do. And I think that even with something that you're passionate about, like writing, can become a list of tasks that you coast through. And I don't mean that you have days where you don't feel like writing. Everybody has days where they don't feel like writing. I'm saying that you get to a point where your heart isn't in this thing, then you're going to lose like the purpose that you feel trying to develop this thing. And so when it gets so much harder to push through when things get difficult, or when you're confused about a story, or you're confused about a career step, it's so much harder to push through that phase of confusion when you have given up and your heart's not in it. And so I really think there is this cycle, this kind of back and forth of thinking and doing tasks and adjusting your thinking because of those tasks, which is funny because if you think about that really relates to storytelling, and it relates to Harmon's story circle, because just as in a story, your character is going through a state of order into a state of chaos, and then adjusting through that chaos and coming through the other side having changed. That is what you're doing as you develop your mindset and you develop what you're trying to do. You are in your mind, and you say, okay, I want to do this. And so you go into a new situation and you figure out, okay, is this what I want to do? Is this the right track, or should I adjust? And then you come out the other side having changed back into your mind to then take more action. And so that it's so interesting that is such an organic element of existence. You're going to see that in all areas of your life. And I think it's so fun and helpful and interesting when you can take real growth and development personally from your life and inject that into a story and give that to somebody else and help them start their own mental path down a new direction so that they can kind of figure out what they're trying to do. I think that's a really beautiful thing. And that's what I've got for you today. So thank you for being a part of the Patreon. You're awesome. And go into the Discord and let's talk about this. What do you think about what I've talked about today? And I'll see you next week.